You're watching the OnePlus Nord CE2 disassembly. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. First, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Next, we need to use a hairdryer or a heat gun to heat up the back plate so we can loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then we're going to use a plastic pry tool to pry the back plate off. Here's a better look at the plastic back plate. The camera lens covers can be replaced by applying heat and gently prying them off. And here's a look at the other side. Now there are 18 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Once the screws have been removed, we need to take a plastic pry tool and place it in between the back housing and the frame of the screen, and then run it along the edges to pop off the catches. The back housing is also made of plastic. The NFC antenna is located on the top center, and the LED flash is located to the left of it. There are also antenna lines drawn on the top left and right side of the back housing. We can see more antenna flex cables on the other side on the top and bottom, as well as the graphite film to help transfer heat. Now that we have access to the battery cable, we need to disconnect that first. Once the battery cable is disconnected, we can proceed to disconnect the rest of the cables. There's a white and black coaxial cable on the right side of the board that needs to be disconnected by popping them off. There's some graphite film covering the front-facing camera connector which needs to be peeled off so we can disconnect and remove it. Here's a better look at the 16 megapixel front-facing camera. There's a single Phillips screw which is holding on the main board that needs to be removed. Now the main board can be lifted up and removed. Taking a better look at the main board, there's a 64 megapixel primary lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel macro lens. None of the cameras have OIS or optical image stabilization. However, it does have EIS, which is electronic image stabilization. The camera connectors can be disconnected by just popping them off. There's a secondary microphone on the top underneath the shield, more graphite film over the front shields to help transfer heat, and there are rubber gaskets around the connectors. The SIM reader is located on the back, and there's copper tape on the back shields as well as some thermal paste. Once the copper tape is peeled back, we can see thermal pads on the processor, RAM, and these chips. Next, the flex cable for the screen, the flex cable next to that, as well as the two other ends of the coaxial cable need to be disconnected from the subboard. And then this flex cable which is adhered to the subboard needs to be peeled off. Now the speaker assembly can be lifted up and removed. There's some more graphite film over the speaker assembly to help transfer heat. And there's a mesh filter over the opening. There's another flex cable which needs to be disconnected from the subboard, as well as the fingerprint scanner. Now the subboard can be lifted up and removed. Taking a closer look at the subboard, there are rubber gaskets around the headphone jack, charger port, as well as the connectors. The primary microphone is located underneath the shield. Here's a look at the other side. If you needed to replace your screen, you'd have to remove the back plate, as well as the screws on the back housing and remove the back housing itself. You'd have to disconnect all the flex cables and coaxial cables from the subboard, and remove the speaker assembly and the subboard, giving you access to removing the red rubber gasket which is covering the flex cable for the screen. At that point you would heat up the front of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath, pry your old screen off, apply new adhesive, and reapply your new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back to the opening in the mid frame, and reassemble the phone. In order to remove the battery, there are adhesive pull tabs provided to help us pry the battery off. Here's a better look at the dual cell battery, with each cell consisting of 2250 mAh. Once the battery is removed, we can see this flex cables which connects the main board to the subboard. We can also see the copper heat pipe which runs underneath the battery as well as the motherboard. The vibrator motor is located on the bottom of the phone and is held down with some adhesive, and the same goes for the fingerprint scanner. The flex cable for the power button is located on this side and is also held down with some adhesive, as well as the flex cable for the volume keys on the other side. The proximity sensor is located on top, and the earpiece speaker is located right next to it. For the repairability score on this phone, I give it a 3.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply the backplate. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.